Welcome back. In this chapter, we will take a closer look at another event. As already mentioned, this event is quite similar to the message event, but with a slightly different approach and different usage scenarios. This makes it a really useful addition to our toolbox. We're talking about the signal event type. The signal event is represented by a triangle inside the circle. Signal events in BPMN are mechanisms for modeling events that communicate across process boundaries or within a process. Message events also do this, but now comes a crucial difference. While message events are used for direct one-to-one communication between two clearly defined parties, so sender and receiver, signal events are intended for a kind of broadcast communication. What does that mean? These events represent something that is made known globally. A signal that is triggered once can be received by several processes or process instances. They are, so to speak, like a broadcast message that is sent to everyone who wants to listen. Signal events therefore do not use message flows, as they do not communicate directly between two specific activities or processes. To illustrate this with an everyday example, imagine an important announcement is made over loudspeakers in a city, such as a severe weather warning. Everyone in the city can hear this warning and react accordingly. Since the loudspeaker announcement is not directed at a specific person, but at everyone who hears the announcement, the loudspeaker announcement is a signal event. To be more precise, the sending of the message is a signal throw event. In BPMN, our example would now look like this. The city administration receives a message, so a message start event, and prepares the announcement. At the end of the process, the announcement is sent using a signal throw event. As I said, it is not directed at a specific person. However, for this action to make sense somewhere, there must be someone somewhere in the city who listens to the signal and then starts a process on their side. For the sake of simplicity, let's take a process for the citizen of the city who hears the signal. He hears the announcement based on his signal start event. Start events of the signal type are always catch events, by the way. And this starts the process of going home and closing the windows. And once again to repeat, due to the broadcast function of this event, there is no message flow between these processes. Theoretically, it's also possible that a sent signal is not received by anyone. However, this does not matter to the sending process, even if the whole thing is, of course, pretty pointless. In contrast, a message event is like a letter that is sent to a specific person. Only the receiver of the letter will know the message it contains and react to it. In short, signal events are for general communication, while message flows are for specific, targeted communication between processes. A sent signal can be received by many processes or process instances that listen to it. It is like the difference between a direct message and a public announcement. Let's take a brief look at the signal types. The start signal event works similar to the start message event, but it starts a process by a received signal sent by another process or an external source. The intermediate signal event can either send or receive a signal. As a sending event, it acts as a broadcast that can be received by any process that is set to receive it. As a receiving event, it reacts to the received signal. The end signal event sends a signal at the end of the process. This signal can be received by another process that listens to it. However, the end signal event can only send and not receive. It is therefore deaf, so to speak. So, unlike message events, which typically represent a response or direct communication between two specific process entities, signal events are intended for more general communication purposes where the specific destination of the signal may not be well defined. They are particularly well suited to scenarios where an event is intended to affect multiple processes simultaneously. You see, the events are very similar and yet have a completely different use case. That's all for the signal event for now. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back. Before we move on to the next exciting event, however, I need to show you another fundamental concept in BPMN in relation to events that significantly expands the possibilities of events. I'll first show you a little abstractly so that you understand the basics before we take a look at practical examples using the corresponding events. Events can not only occur in the normal process flow, but they can also be attached to a certain activity and therefore control the flow of a process in even more detail. These are so-called boundary events. Boundary events are special events in BPMN that are attached to an activity in order to respond to events that occur during the execution of an activity. As such, they provide fine-grained control over how a business process responds to specific situations that may arise during the execution of a particular task. They can also directly influence the activity being carried out, which would otherwise not be possible with the classic sequential processing of activities. How do these events do this? They can do this because there are two types of boundary events. These differ in how they affect the current activity to which they are attached. Boundary events can either be interrupting or non-interrupting. Interrupting boundary events stop the activity to which they are attached as soon as the event occurs. For example, when a time limit is reached or a specific message is received. This means that the original activity is cancelled and the process flow follows a path specified by the boundary event. However, not all use cases in the real process world can be modeled in this way. That is why there is also non-interrupting events. Let's take another example. During the runtime of an order process, the customer asks for the time window for delivery of the goods. This starts another process, but this information has no influence on the execution of the respective activities in the main process. The process must not be interrupted for this reason. Therefore, the following applies to non-interrupting boundary events. These events do not interrupt the activity. They make it possible to start a parallel path in the process while the original activity continues to run. An example could be an event that is triggered when a message is received, but the original activity continues regardless. What can trigger such boundary events? Basically, there are different types of events that can be used. For example, these events can be time-based, such as timer events, message-based, such as message or signal. However, conditional events can also be used as boundary events. An important type here are the event types that are used if something in the process does not run without errors or a couple of others. But we will look at these in detail in the following chapters. One more important note. Boundary events, whether interrupting or not, can only be modeled as catch events by definition. After all, they should have an effect on the process. So, boundary events are important for modeling processes because they make it possible to design realistic and dynamic processes that can react to different situations or exceptions. They help to keep the process flow clear and flexible by providing alternative or additional paths in case of unexpected events. Boundary events are therefore an essential tool in BPMN for designing complex and realistic business processes that are able to react efficiently to a variety of scenarios. If the concept is not yet really clear to you in depth, no problem. In the following chapters, these will occur quite frequently. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back. Since we are already so well into the basic concepts, I have another one for you in the context of events. There is a separate type of subprocess, the event subprocess. Externally, it differs from the normal subprocess which you have already become familiar with, in that the process boundaries are shown with a dashed line. However, the dashed line is of course not enough. The event subprocess although behaves very differently to the subprocess you have already seen. But first of all, what are event subprocesses? Event subprocesses are special types of subprocesses in BPMN that are designed to react to events that happen during the execution of a high-level process. They are modeled within a process or another subprocess but they only start when a specific event arises. What are the applications of event subprocesses? They are very useful for handling situations that may take place during the execution of a process, such as error handling, timer events, or for receiving messages. This depends on the start event modeled in the event subprocess. But what is the crucial difference to a normal subprocess? Apart from the dotted line, of course. The main difference between event subprocesses and other types of subprocesses lies in the way they are activated. Normal subprocesses are executed as part of a regular process flow. They start when the process flow reaches their activity. Event subprocesses, on the other hand, are activated by the triggering of specific events, not by the normal flow of the process. This is because they are event-driven. This in turn means that they are not connected to the main process with a sequence flow. Let's take a look at this example. The token runs from the start event into our process. While this activity is being executed, a message event occurs. We can see from the double solid line that this is an interrupting event, and it has the name message A. On our next task, we also see a boundary event, but with the name message B and the dashed double line as a non-interrupting event. What happens in our process now? The token runs into our first activity, and while it remains there and is processed, message event A takes place. As it is an interrupting event, the further execution of the activity is aborted, and our token now looks for a way out of the process. And this is exactly where it finds our suitable event subprocess, which reacts to message A. This means the token jumps out of the main process into the event subprocess that matches the event that has occurred and runs to its end in this subprocess. Important, it does not return to the main process. It would be different if the message event A did not occur, but the non-interrupting event B did. This would form another token, which searches for the appropriate event subprocess and finds it right here. While the newly created token runs through the subprocess, the first token, since the event is non-interrupting, will continue on its path through the main process. And very important for both cases, there are no sequence flows between the main process and the event subprocess. The absolute brilliant advantage here, you can always reuse the subprocesses. No matter where your token is, if the corresponding boundary event occurs in the main process, the event subprocess is executed, interrupting or non-interrupting, just as you model it. So, in BPMN, event subprocesses offer a flexible way of reacting to events that occur during the execution of a process. They expand the possibilities of process modeling by allowing both planned and unexpected situations to be handled smartly. Their ability to react to specific events and the option to interrupt or run in parallel with the process flow clearly sets them apart from other subprocesses and opens up a wide range of possible applications in business process modeling. Already an incredibly powerful tool. And now, enough about this topic. We will see in the next chapter.